Astro friends. This is Astrology AF, the show that talks everything astrology, above and below the totally real, not at all illusory sky. I'm Sunny, your hostess with over 30 years of chart reading experience.
And I'm Boots, your hostling with almost 30 years experience questioning innocent people to tears. We're here to walk with you through the twinkling starlight into the basic, the advanced, and the obscure.
Hi, I'm Boots.
And I'm Sunny.
And this is Astrology AF.
And this is where we just get to talk about astrology. When Boots and I get in the same place, it's hard to shut both of us, or even one of us, up about astrology. So we decided we're going to talk about it, record it, put it out there for everybody to hopefully learn. So, but what's happening right now in the sky is that this is a Scorpio rising chart. And honestly, in the past, because I have a thing about Scorpio in my own chart, I would have been like, ooh, I don't know, I don't like that. But it's about delving in to secrets. It's about uncovering. Scorpio is very much about uncovering the secret, you know. And so that is very much what we're trying to do here today. So, and always.
So Scorpio falling in the winter, that tells us a little bit about its elemental and modal personality, right? So it's cold.
Right. Well, it's not quite winter. It's like late October.
Okay.
But Scorpio is a water sign, okay? And it's also a fixed sign. And so fixed water, what does that make you think of?
Well, when I first started looking into astrology, I found that the terms fixed, cardinal, and the other one.
Mutable.
Mutable.
Yeah, right.
See, yeah, they have no connection to anything in my vocabulary that kind of makes sense for what they actually mean. Like mutable, I was like, so you can turn it off? Like, what?
Marvelous. So let's talk about that, because that's awesome. So cardinal is placed at the beginning of a season. Okay, Aries is a cardinal sign. Cancer at the beginning of summer. Libra at the beginning of autumn, and Capricorn at the beginning of winter. Okay? And the reason they're placed this way is because cardinal signs have an initiatory energy. They start things up. Okay? They're, somebody with a lot of cardinal energy is an idea person. They're like coming up with all these schemes. They don't necessarily follow through. Okay. So, but they're great at dreaming up and going, I know what we need to do. We need a thing. Okay?
Right.
And I'm talking with my hands tremendously. But so, and then the next sign in the order in the seasons is a fixed sign. So in the spring, that's Taurus. Mm. In the summer, that's Leo. Okay, in August, late July, early August, which we're getting ready to come into. And fall is, why can't I do this right now? I have to look at a chart. Fall is Scorpio.
Okay.
and then winter is Aquarius. Okay, and these are all fixed. The fixed energy is like, okay, I got your vision, I grasp it, I'm gonna implement that.
Okay.
I'm gonna bring that into manifestation. Okay,
right.
Let's go. Now, remember, too, we all have all of these energies in our chart. We're all capable of doing all of these things, okay? But sometimes people have a lot of energy in one type. It's called a modality, in one modality or another. And that just gives them a little more genius in one particular aspect of this three-part conversation. The third part is the mutable signs, okay? And so, and you can always think of the mutable signs as it's like we're coming to the end of a season, and so like one day we'll feel really, for let's say spring, we're talking about spring first Gemini, right? In June, some days, and late May, some days we'll feel really summer-like, really hot, oh man. And then other days it's like really cool and rainy and windy. You know, it's that energy is one energy is moving out, the other one is moving in.
Okay.
How this shows up in a person in behavior is that mutable signs are really excellent at saying, look at this thing that you made. I'm noticing that this little part, this doesn't work very well. What if we tweaked that and changed it and tried to make it more functional or whatever, or pretty or whatever the purpose is?
Yeah.
Okay, so they are great at taking something and then it's not exactly picking it apart, but it's looking at things as it's the sum of their parts. Is that the right way of, or it's really about looking at the parts.
So it's looking at the trees instead of the forest, but deliberately.
Very good.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then we go back into cardinal energy in the calendar, and that's how that works, those modalities work. Okay. So somebody with a lot of cardinal energy is going to be, zooming around creating. Fixed energy, they love when somebody else has come up with something. They don't really want to come up with it themselves.
Okay. Right.
But they're great at, it's like taking marching orders and I know what to do.
Okay, they can implement.
Right.
Okay.
And then mutable is, let's improve that. Let's see if we can make that even better. Okay.
So we've got the fixed water sign as our ascendant at the moment.
Yeah.
And so that's with the energy of water being applied to the mutable energy of fixed energy of keeping something going, or of modifying and improving and being part of the longer term process of whatever the subject is. So how does water fit into that? Kind of a basic understanding that I have of water is that it's very, everybody always says emotional, is what they point to as water.
Right.
Water is the most flexible, well, actually maybe the second most flexible of the elements next to air.
Okay, yes.
And it drops, it sinks, whereas air tends to stay up in the sky. So how does that kind of play in and mix with the fixed energy in order to make Scorpio what it is?
Love it. Good question. So in astrology, we talk in symbols, almost exclusively. Symbols and metaphors, okay? And when you talk about water, okay, very much emotional, very, very along those lines. And so in Pisces, for example, we think of an ocean, okay? For Cancer, those are the three water signs: Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. In Cancer, we think of like a lake, okay? In Scorpio, and this sounds terrible, but it works. We think of a sewer. Okay, it's water flowing, but it has a fixed path. Okay. It is not, a lake can overflow, flood the fields. The ocean has tides and waves. It's constantly moving. Okay, right. But a fixed water, other than freezing it, how do you make water stay in one place? You design a channel for it.
Okay.
You design a route. And so, Scorpio, the energy is emotional, but it's like, I'm not really like, looking to spread this out. We're on this path.
Okay, so it's kind of directed with its emotions.
Love it.
And maybe before, I know, plumbing has been around a long time, but maybe before plumbing, when these concepts were being used, in early antiquity and such, do you think maybe like a river or a stream would have been more where fixed water would fall into? Right,
before they came. But honestly, aqueducts came in pretty early in this scenario.
Yeah, and just digging trenches to water your crops. It's one of our earliest behaviors when we're like, I'm sick of tracing them across the prairie. I want to just keep them in like a fence. I'm going to cut down some trees and put them up, and then I want some, grass pods to eat too. And so I'm going to bring the water over here just through the dirt, make my own little river.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So in that sense, and yes, in antiquity, obviously we didn't have those, sewer pipes that are 4 feet across. But the concept is still the same. It's water that has a path.
Okay. Gotcha.
So,
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's what we are in a position where you are applying this to an event. In this case, us recording here and making the podcast.
Right.
So it's a fixed energy of internal. It's not always just emotions, right? Water's not always just emotions.
No,
but
right.
It's like the internal world.
Right.
And so we're directing it in what we're doing here and trying to get to the bottom of things and be, on course of where we're going. Not that we're super on course. We're a little bit just like, just like, hey, what's things we can talk about and running with it. And that's the feel that we want to go with for this. But we are fixed in the energy of wanting to talk about astrology and how other things channel into that.
Right. Love it. Very good. Nice hook.
Okay.
And the thing that we sat down and decided we wanted to talk about today was sun signs.
Everybody loves sun signs.
Everybody loves sun
except
signs.
Sunny, ironically.
I am not a fan, honestly. It's not that sun signs themselves are bad, It's that it's made so simplistic, and I get why. The reason why is because our calendar is based on the movement of the sun. It is 365 days long because that's how long it takes the Earth to go around the sun, or in astrology, for the sun to go around the zodiac.
Yes.
Okay.
As it was in tradition.
As the ancients.
The way it's always been, not with this newfangled science.
So, and so it's very easy. You don't have to even open a book or a computer program or anything to generally know where your sun is. Okay?
Right.
If you were born in July, your sun is in, it's early July, your sun is in Cancer. End of discussion. And now we get to talk, Cancer. That means you're like this, and that means you're like that, okay? And so basically sun sign astrology would have us act and think as though there are 12 different kinds of people. Libra, Cancer, Pisces. Boom, that's all we need to know. Okay?
Right.
But it's not. And this is my issue with it, okay? Even though every time that you read the description about what a Libra sun is, what a Cancer sun is, what a Pisces sun is, there's a lot of words.
Right.
And so you can kind of pick and choose and go, well, I'm kind of like that, I'm kind of like that, I'm not really like that, so I'm not going to use that word. Okay. But essentially, there are 12 descriptors for all, what, is it 7 billion, 8 billion?
8 billion.
8 billion.
Over 8 billion.
Okay, so all 8 billion could be described by one of these 12 descriptors.
Each with like a paragraph or two.
That defies logic. Okay?
And that's why people, I think, so easily say like, well, obviously that's, horseshit. My mom is whatever. My mom's a Leo and she hates attention. She's very quiet.
Yeah.
And that would never be in any simple description of a Leo
Absolutely.
ever.
Absolutely. Right. So what we have there is, okay, we have 12 different kinds of people. And I'm like, no, we don't. So we're going to do some math today.
Okay.
Boots has offered to man the calculator. So we have 12 different kinds of people. So put in 12. Okay. But if we look at the whole chart, there are more data points than where your sun is. Okay, a
Right.
lot more. So let's start with your rising sign. There are 12 possible rising signs. Your rising sign is kind of the way you present yourself. Okay? So 12 sun signs and 12 rising signs. Math.
Am I multiplying or adding?
Multiplying.
Okay, cool.
Right? Wouldn't you? Yeah, okay.
Okay, we're at 144 possibilities for
Okay,
people.
so 144 different kinds of people. Now this is a little bit better, but we still have 8 billion people on the planet, and there's 144 different types? I don't buy it. Okay, back to the chart. Now we have the moon sign. There are 12 possible moon signs. The moon is your emotions, it's your mom sometimes, or how you see your mom. And it's highly significant in the chart. So now how many types of people do you have?
1,728.
Okay, still inadequate with 8. I keep trying to say 7 billion. I am stuck in 2012.
Like 6 months ago?
Or 6 months ago, whatever it was.
I think it just clicked over finally.
Okay, so 8 billion people. We haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
Then we have Mercury. Now, Mercury, we don't have 12 possible Mercury signs.
Oh, we don't?
Well, I mean,
Backspace.
we do. There obviously are, but for every sun sign, you have 3 possible Mercury signs.
Okay, right.
Okay?
Right.
Because Mercury is orbiting the sun. And so you're never going to have a Cancer sun and an Aquarius Mercury. It's just not possible. Mercury is always right there, one in the same sign as the sun, or one sign maximum away. So multiply that whole number times 3.
5,184.
Okay, still not there yet. I don't think. Okay.
Like the level of complexity.
Venus. Venus has 5 possible signs for every sun sign. For the same reason, it's just that Venus can go a little farther.
Okay, 25,920.
Brilliant. Then we're talking about Mars. All 12 Mars signs are available to us wherever our sun is, because the sun and Mars are tracking on different tracks, basically.
Okay, so
So
we're
12.
at 311,040 different types of people, which isn't accurate. I feel like it could be enough, but it's not accurate.
It's not. So let's just do the inners. We won't even bother with the outer planets, okay? So we have Jupiter, 12 Jupiter signs.
It's 12, and then 12 Saturns?
And 12 Saturn signs.
Okay, we're at 44 million.
And then, of course, we could add in the Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. We could also add in, there are a ton more things, asteroids, planetoids, fixed stars. But you get my drift. This is not, if we just stop with the sun and say, well, I'm a Cancer, and so therefore, da-da-da-da-da. That does not describe any of
This
us.
isn't Myers-Briggs.
Absolutely not. This is way more complex than that. Yeah.
Significantly. I was talking to our friend Tim about this the other day, and just how it's akin to learning to read any other sort of language. But I think that from my experience, the one that it's closest to is sheet music, in that sheet music is kind of more linear, whereas a natal chart or a horary chart, whatever it is happening all at one time. But it kind of, the way that it registers in my head is that it's making a sound that you can't understand until you get what all of the relationships between all of these placements are, because beyond just the 44,700,000 and something that we've already gotten to, then you have the different interactions between them and the angles they're sitting at, called the aspects.
Right.
And you can have 2 bodies that they interact together entirely differently based on whether they are 4 degrees apart versus 30 degrees apart versus 60 versus 120 or 3, like all of these have totally different effects. You're getting a different tone by pointing their rays at each other from different angles. And so all of that together ends up kind of coming up with this meaning, which is what we seek to learn how to read and how to interpret and understand.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, what this boils down to is you are unique. There is no one else who has your same birth chart. Even if you are a twin, you might have somebody who's born 4 minutes after you, but there is still a difference. Okay? And so to try to distill that down into super simplistic stuff, it's like it just tries to paper over the fact that you are unique. There's no one else like you. Mm-hmm. And personally, I love that, and I love that so much that I despise sometimes. Just because it's like, to use your analogy of the sheet music, and if you had studied all of this sheet music and you knew how to play your instrument so beautifully, and then I came in and with a kazoo and said, "Oh, I can do that just fine." It's not it. There's so many nuances to it from a symphony orchestra to a little kazoo, and they might be carrying the same tune. But holy cow, which one would you rather listen to?
Right. Depends on my mood, but usually I'm going to be more impressed by one than the other.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So that's essentially why. I mean, the placement of the sun is good for a few things. Like the moon shows your mother, or how you perceive your mother, the sun shows how you perceive your father. Okay.
And you've made a little bit of a clarification in the past that I feel like is good to bring up now, that it's not necessarily just a mother or a father. Mm-hmm. It's the person who provided more of a maternal energy to your upbringing, or the person who provided more of a paternal energy. And I'm sure, so that's another thing, is that your chart isn't going to say, oh, this person has to have had a mom and a dad, like a cis mom and a cis dad, because that's not necessarily going to be the case. In that whole menagerie of different aspects and different behaviors going on, you might see that there is a considerable weight on maternal energy in your upbringing, and little to no paternal, and that could be recognized by having had 2 moms, or only having had 1 mom, or having had no mom,
or having had a dad that wasn't around after a certain age, and the lived experience. We always this is why I refer to readings as consultations, because I want there to be a back and forth. If I say something to you about your father based on what the sun is doing in your chart, and you're like, oh, well, my father took off when I was 7 or whatever, that's something I want to hear back, because I learn. Even, I've been doing this for years, but I learn from every person that I read for, that I consult with. Because, what it looks like in the chart and then how it manifests in real life are very different things sometimes.
Right.
And so we can talk about that, and we can look for, well, is that, can I see that? Is that in there? Oh, look, that sun is square Mars. Okay, so there was a disruption and kind of an explosion and maybe some impulsive behavior and, da-da-da-da-da. Yeah. So, do we have any more to say about that?
We can keep on getting into the weeds on this one. So when you've got I'm just thinking for my own chart, this may or may not get edited out, but for my own chart, like I've got, I feel like there's a lot going on with my sun.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got the sun conjunct the ascendant.
Okay.
I've got sun, so it's in first house.
Uh-huh.
It's fall in Libra, and fall is referring to how much power the sun has to act in my chart. And so it's debilitated to a good extent in that sense. And then it's making aspect to the two primary ones off the top of my head, other than the conjunction with Mercury, or combustion with Mercury, is I've got square Venus Uranus and Neptune.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so those are two energies that I still kind of like, I look at it and I try to absorb as much as I can and think that I've got an idea of it, and then a couple of days later I'm just like back to I don't get it. I don't know what's going on. And I've heard that's actually appropriate for those
It is.
two
So
bodies.
Anytime I see Neptune in aspect to a planet, it says to me that when it comes to the topics that planet is involved in, so dad, also ego, our sense of self, not necessarily in an unhealthy, I'm just the best and you all are terrible kind of sense, but just, who you feel like you are internally. When we have Neptune in conversation with that, it's often like a sense of confusion, like not being able to see clearly. Neptune, if we think back about that, Neptune is the god of the ocean, right? And if we were to put something in a few inches of ocean water and step back and then say, okay, grab that, okay, just reach in and get it. Very often, you're going to go in sideways, wonky. You can't get it the first time because we can't see underwater clearly. It would if you're swimming, that's another thing, but from the perspective of being outside of the water and then trying to interact with something that is in the water, Neptune, it's like, where is it? Okay. What is it?
So that explains my delusional ego.
Maybe.
You don't have to comment any further.
Okay, I'm done. But it's, that's a very common, there can also be an element of confusion on purpose. So this would be somebody who, and this, I am not talking about your chart, I'm not, but...
Where is she?
Or am I? But it could be someone who deliberately tells an untruth to confuse the other people. So they lie, essentially, okay? So Neptune, it can be that. You're confused because someone is deliberately trying to confuse you, or it can, the high vibe of Neptune, I always like to try to hit both. There's high vibe and low vibe of everything.
Yeah.
High vibe of Neptune is idealism. It's these fantasies. It's like, I know, let's rent a boat and we'll sail to the Caribbean. Do you know how to sail? No, but who cares? It'll be great. I mean, so it's those kinds of, they're not even really grounded in reality. Again, confusion,
yeah.
Right?
It's like, I don't know, the wind pushes you. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah. So it's all of those, in some cases we would look at that and I would talk about what Neptune's doing or what Neptune embodies.
Yeah.
And you would go, oh, I totally know what that is. Okay. My dad did this and blah, 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 blah. And, and sometimes it's just, I just don't really see my dad very clearly.
Okay.
I think I have a grasp on what he was about, but then later on I find out something and it's like, oh, that I was totally wrong. And, I have to go back to square one and figure that out because I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. What other kinds of aspects to the sun have you seen that really stood out to you?
The biggest one that I look at and love to play with is the moon opposing the sun.
Okay.
That's a full moon. right?
Okay, yeah.
And there's within astrology, there's many schools of thought. There's many theories and ideas, but some astrologers heavily use moon phases. So they look at a new moon and then the crescent moon and so on and so forth all the way around. And the full moon, which is moon opposite sun, is like there's a little element of ta-da in those people.
Okay, yeah.
Not necessarily the Leo ta-da, unless one of those happens to be in Leo.
Right.
But they could be, it could be Virgo and Pisces. Okay, but there's still a little element of here I go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've read a little bit about that and how it's kind of the way how complete you feel. And if you're in a position where you feel emotionally fully complete, then those people do kind of tend to stick their landings. They're just like jazz hands and like, don't mind, look at me, like I'm here to light everything up, Yeah. And then if you're in a position where you've been born like under a new moon, then that means that you still have all of your light to gain. And so you're kind of, an underlying theme, you might say, in your life and how you feel over the course of your life is that you aren't full enough, that you aren't complete enough, you're not shining as brightly as you could be. And I haven't met enough people with one or the other. Like I know what my moon phase was, and my partner's moon phase is almost the same as mine. And so, like,
what is your moon phase?
I'm at over 3/4.
Okay,
between
waxing?
3/4, waxing, 3/4 waxing.
Oh my God, me too.
Wow. We've got a couple of aspects that we share.
Yeah, we do.
And that's something that, just to go off on a totally different rabbit trail, you find when you're familiar with your own chart, you end up finding other people who, that when they're familiar with theirs, as you're talking about it, you realize like, oh, we have things in common that explains why we, it at least correlates to why we get along. And why we were attracted to this relationship in the first place. And then it's really interesting also to look at charts of people who don't get along and, see like, they've got like, their moon completely square another like highly personal aspect, like maybe a square opposed to another person's ascendant. And so it's like one person's emotions and one person's just personality totally do not get along. And you can see that reflected in a chart pretty clearly.
Yeah, can I interrupt?
Go ahead.
I have one. I was looking at my grandparents' birth charts, which I didn't have a date for my grandfather until recently, and a friend was doing a little genealogy search. And so I don't have houses, but I have dates.
Okay, yeah.
And so my grandparents are famous, notorious for, they were super in love and then they were super in hate. I mean, it was, throwing things and, just the classic, Elizabeth Taylor did a movie, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, I think it was. And it was just these terrible fights, just horrible. And that's my grandparents as well. And they did not stay together, and it's a good thing for everyone that they did not. But they both have, his Mars is square her Venus. Her Mars is square his Venus.
Wow.
And if you look up every descriptor of, what is this aspect? It's like, intense attraction. But if you're gonna keep this going for the long run, you're gonna have to work some things out, and
you're gonna have to apply some water to that situation.
Yeah. So stuff like that. Yes, it shows up. Absolutely.
Get a third who's a Pisces.
Thanks so much for being here with us today. To keep getting more astrology with Sunny and Boots, like and subscribe.
To talk with Sunny in an astrological consultation, visit sunnysastrology.com to schedule an appointment. To reach Sunny and Boots about the show, email us at contact@astrologyafpodcast.com. Links in the description.